Okay, students, today's lesson 7.7 is going to have a review of trig ratios and then the new information, which is inverse trig ratios. All right, to get started, review of trig ratios. Remember that we can only use trig ratios whenever we have right triangles only. So you always have to make sure that you have right triangles. And when we are doing normal trig ratios, we're normally looking for a side of the triangle. So it could be one of the legs or the hypotenuse. Okay, so just like on your homework, your previous homework, this one here, sine x, that means that we're focusing, here's my theta, my angle x is what I'm focusing on, so that means this is the opposite side this time, this is the adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. So that's going to be 15 over 25, since sine is the word so, which means opposite over hypotenuse. So we put 15 over the hypotenuse, which is 25. Then we would put this in our calculator, and when you put that in your calculator, you end up with 0.6. 15 divided by 25. 0.6. Okay? Then, let's do this one next. Here, we're still focused in on x being our theta. This is our, here, for tangent. Cosine, remember, is ca, which means adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, since this is the adjacent side, that's going to be 20 over the hypotenuse, which is 25. And then you would plug that into your calculator round if you have to. 20 divided by 25 is going to be 0.8. This side over here, tangent, TOA, is going to be opposite over adjacent, so we're going to put the 15 over the 20. 15 over 20 is going to be 0.75. All right, now draw a line. Okay, and now let's erase our thetas, because this time we're going to go back and we're going to change our focus. Remember, you always worry about where the angle is before you get started. We're focusing on y, so here's my theta. Okay, so here, sine, that changes this now. Since this is my angle, this becomes the opposite side. This becomes the adjacent side. That stays the hypotenuse. So, and I'll go ahead and mark this one. There's my theta. So this is no longer the adjacent side. This becomes the opposite. This becomes the adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. Again with this one, opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Okay, so sine, since it was opposite over hypotenuse, that's going to be 20 over 25. And notice how we already have 20 over 25. When you plug that in your calculator, you get 0.8. Cosine, ca, that means adjacent over hypotenuse. So this time we're going to put 15 over 25. And notice how 15 over 25 is up here. That's 0.6. See how they flipped when we change the angles. Okay, next, over here, tangent, when we change it, this became the opposite, this became the adjacent, so this becomes 20 over 15. So it just flips. And 20 over 15, 20 divided by 15, is going to be 1 with 3 repeating. And remember, when we're dealing with trig, we want 4 decimal places, so that's going to be 3, 3, 3, 3. We round to the 10,000ths place. All right, you're going to do this section as part of your homework, and you're going to bring it in so we can check it tomorrow. You have to have this section filled out in order to get 100 on your homework. All right, page 2. Page 2, we have more practice at the top, still review. Okay, this is what page 2 looks like. Make sure you have it. Okay, I'm going to do this first one for you. It says identify and use the appropriate trig ratio, either sine, cosine, or tangent, to find the length of the missing side. Round all answers to the nearest 10,000ths. Okay, so I'm going to do this one for you. Notice how I have this angle. Here's my theta. And I have the opposite side marked, and I have the hypotenuse side marked. What trig function uses opposite and hypotenuse? That would be SOH. S-O-H. So that's going to be sine. So I'm going to put sine up here. Sine is the trig function. Okay, so I need to set up my proportion. I'm going to use sine of 68 over 1 equals opposite, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 24.1. Now remember to cross multiply. You get x equals, that's going to be 24.1 times sine 68. Now, before you plug that into your calculator, remember you must check the mode and make sure that it is in degrees. Remember, the mode key is right next to the second key. You're going to arrow down twice between radian and degrees. When it's in degrees, it will be highlighted. If it looked like this when you first got your calculator, that means that it's in radians. So you would have to arrow down, arrow over to degrees, enter, so that it would be now taking the highlight away from radians and now flashing on degrees. All you do to get out of here is clear. Okay, so here I'm going to put 24.1 times, I don't have to put the times, I just put sine, and then 68, close parentheses, enter. That is going to be 22.3451,309. And remember, round to the nearest 10,000. So that's going to be 22.3451. You're going to do number 2 and number 3 on your own and bring those in. Okay, here's the new information. Now before, when we were using regular trig functions, we were looking for a side. Now we're going to be trying to find the angle. We know all the sides, now we want to look for the angle. When we are looking for inverse sine looks like this on the calculator. Sine to the -1. It's still going to be opposite over hypotenuse, but in order to find your angle, you would have to enter sine -1 parentheses, put the opposite side over the hypotenuse, close over parentheses, and enter, and that will tell you how many degrees you have. For inverse cosine, it's still going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, but you're going to push cosine to the -1, adjacent over hypotenuse. When you enter that in your calculator, you will get your angle. And for tangent, same thing. Tan -1, opposite over adjacent, will give you your angle. All right, let's practice what this is about. Okay, I'm going to draw a line down here right above this second angle all the way across. So that gives me separate workspaces. Okay, first of all, I'm trying to find the measure of angle YXZ. YXZ is this angle here, so I'm going to put my theta here. So here, since it's in this column, I want to focus on sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so this is going to be opposite. This is hypotenuse this time. So opposite, I'm going to use sine -1 parentheses 15 over 25. And that's what I would plug into my calculator. Now, to plug in sine -1, you're going to have to hit the second key and then the sine key. because that gets you to this right here, which I don't know if you can see, but I'll try to zoom in blue. So if you can see it, in blue right here, it says sine -1. That's your inverse sine. Okay, zooming out. Okay, so sine -1. Now you enter, it's the 15, the opposite side, 15, over, or divided by, 25. Close your parentheses and enter. You get 36.86989765. When you're dealing with angles, you want to round to the nearest degree. When you're dealing with sides, you want 4 decimal places. So here, when we're rounding to the nearest degree, this is going to be, I'm going to write down equals 36.86989765. I'm going to write down what the calculator says so that when I go back in my notes, or we're taking our quiz, I'll remember that that's what's on the calculator, and this will remind me that I need to round it to the nearest degree, which is 37 degrees. Okay, the next one. This is XYZ. XYZ means that this is now my theta. That's my angle that I'm focusing on. So this stays hypotenuse. This is now my opposite, and this is my adjacent side. For sine, though, since I'm in the sine column, I don't need to worry about the adjacent. I just worry about the opposite and the hypotenuse. So again, I'm going to put sine -1. Opposite is going to be 20 over 25. Okay, now when you plug that into your calculator, you're still going to hit the second key, the sine key. You're going to put the 20 over the 25, and you're going to get 53.13010235. Now, remember, when you are trying to find the angle, you want to round to the nearest degree, which is 53 degrees. Okay, so that means that this angle here, I'm going to write it up here, this is 37, this is 53. And we check it by looking and saying, do all of these add up to be 180? Well, 53 plus 37 plus 90 equals 180. So that's how you know you did it correctly. Okay, let's cover this up and go to the next one. Cosine. Again, the letter in the middle is my focus, YXZ, so this is my theta. This is opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. This time, since I'm dealing with cosine, I'm not going to worry about this one. I'm only going to worry about the adjacent. It's adjacent over hypotenuse. So this time I'm going to put cosine -1. My adjacent side is 20 over 25. Okay, now, before I plug it into the calculator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the one below it. Okay, this one is XYZ. XYZ, remember that changes your theta to up here. Adjacent now is this one. This makes this opposite. So this time I would put cosine -1, and that would be 15 over 20. I'm sorry, 25 for the hypotenuse. Okay? So let's plug both of these in. I want you to hit the second key, the cosine key, so you can get the cosine -1 on the calculator. Let's enter 20 divided by 25. Close. And you get the 36.86989765. That rounds to approximately 37 degrees. And remember, that's X, so this one was 37 degrees. What do you think the next one's going to be, since you've already seen this before? Let's go ahead and practice punching it in. Second cosine, 15 divided by 25 should be 53. Let's see. Ta-da! 53.13010235. So yes, this rounds to 53. So we know we did it right. Okay, so now looking at this, all three of these triangles are the same. So since all the sides are the same, that means that all these two angles should be 37 and 53. So let's check it. Here, this is going to be tangent, and when I'm dealing with tangent, this is my focus point, x. When I'm dealing with tangent, I'm only dealing with opposite and adjacent. I don't deal with a hypotenuse. Okay, so that's going to be tan negative 1. It's going to be opposite, 15, over adjacent, which is 20. And then if I change my theta, it's going to flip the opposite and adjacent. So I have to change these. That makes this one opposite and this one adjacent. So opposite over adjacent, tan negative 1, that makes this 20 over 15. Okay, so now just to double check, we're going to plug these into our calculator. Second tangent, so you get tan negative 1, 15 divided by 20, enter. You get 36.86989765, which rounds to 37 degrees. So that one's 37 degrees, like we thought it would be. Tan negative 1, it's going to be 20 divided by 15, which is 53 degrees. Excuse me. Okay. Next page. Okay, again, I'm going to do the first one for you. Identify the inverse trig ratio. So I'm looking for this angle here. That means this is opposite. This is hypotenuse. So I'm looking for, excuse me, inverse sine. So to do this, I'm going to put sine negative 1, opposite over hypotenuse, and I'm going to plug that into my calculator. So second sine gives me sine negative 1, 15 divided by 24, close my parentheses, enter, and I get 38.68218745. So I'm going to round to the nearest degree. That's going to be 39 degrees. I want you to do 5 and 6 by yourself and bring those in tomorrow with your homework. And that's all for note 7.7.